Everyone, and welcome to Scouting the League. Really excited to get into combine and draft talk with Jordan Reid, lead draft analyst for ESPN. Who blew him away at the combine? What Razorbacks got him excited? And what one player would he want on his team? Just a few of the topics we run through as we hit on just about every position, the good, the bad, what we would like to see. Really fun, very insightful as always. For all things Jordan, you can follow him at Jordan_Reid on Twitter. Before we jump in, though, if you haven't, go subscribe. That is the one that's really going to help us out, continue to get the word out there, and share this podcast, of course. Draft insight you won't hear anywhere else, and insight on the scouting landscape that you won't hear anywhere else. We've had scouting traits. We've cleaned up the combine Thursday this week. We talk pro days, things that I've actually been to as a scout. I've put players through workouts. I've done the measurements, done the testing. So again, that's going to be a really fun one. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. But again, like I said, share this with everybody you are working with. No loves football as much as you do. Head over, give me a follow at RightStepADV, my website, rsafootball.com. I am Rodrik David. Everything football, everything scouting is what I like to do. No Neil Stratton today. He had some things he had to get taken care of. We miss him as always. Make sure you follow him at Inside the League on Twitter. Make sure if you're a scout or aspiring scout, you head over to thescoutingcommunity.com to check out everything we have for you there. If you need some insoles to upgrade your shoes, which I almost guarantee you do, head over to bluemaca.com. Use code scouting20. Let them know we sent you. Get a little discount on that order. Again, the insoles that will upgrade your shoes, that non-slip, that recovery, that turf toe, whatever it is, it will make your shoes better. It's just a stock pair of shoes until you get that Blue Maca insole. So head over bluemaca.com, use code scouting20. And with that, let's get into it with Jordan. Well, we are post-combine here. Jordan Reid, the day does not slow down for you. The combine is done, but pro day's kicking up, and we are that much closer to draft time. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk some ball here today.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure joining you, Roger.
So you wrap up at the combine on Sunday, and you get back home. You're already hitting the TV spots, but what does the combine look like for you? Again, there's plenty of workouts, there's plenty of media time. What does the week look like for you in terms of how busy and where you're focusing your time?
Hectic is the more word to describe it, just because you're hustling around trying to meet up with scouting buddies that you know within the league that you've known throughout time, speaking to GMs, executives. It's like a big convention, right? It happens at night. It happens during the day when they're not in those formal and informal meetings. So throughout the day, I'm really talking to, or before the workouts actually start on Thursday, and I usually get in Monday morning. So talking to sources, talking to all your buddies in the league, with scouts, former scouts, executives, GMs. So really Monday through Wednesday night is really like a huge fellowship of convention of of people you only see once or twice a year, but sometimes you see a lot of people throughout the year just because I travel so much in the fall to these games. So the big fellowship Monday through Wednesday, but Thursday is really when the show starts. For everybody, you have the first workouts for players, and it's really repeated all the way through Sunday, all the way through the offensive line workouts, which is usually when I head out back home. So the fastest week ever, man, but it's one of my favorite weeks of the year.
Yeah, it seems like every podcast, even what I talk about is, again, what players are doing, what scouts are doing in terms of, again, on-field stuff, interviews. But like you said, that networking piece is, again, huge. I spent about 2 days in Indy, and again, it's always fun catching up as guys move around, as scouts move from team to team, the agents with you're on the phone with different times of the year. It's
Sure.
always good putting a face with a name. And like you said, it's a fast week. A lot of business happens early in the morning and late at night. And sometimes you get whatever sleep you can. But it's, there's nothing like Indy. Indy's a fantastic setup. If you've been there, you can really spend almost the entire week and never step foot outside, whether that's good or
Yeah.
not. Again, between the JW, the Marriott's, again, the Conrad, all the way to the Conference Center and Lucas Oil. Again, it is just a fantastic setup. But we saw numbers down a little bit. Again, not only with the number of guys performing on the field, but the sense talking to scouts, talking to agents, talking to people that have been there for a bunch of years. The overall numbers of people attending seemed slightly down this year. Do you think that way, just the nature of the way it fell this year, and then participation numbers? Are we going to kind of continue to see that fall? What are your thoughts?
I think it's going to continue, just because if you're a top ranked player, you really have no incentive to perform. Now, I hate saying that, but like, for example, Fernando Mendoza, what incentive do you have to perform or even throw at the combine? Just because you're already the perceived number one overall pick, I'd be stunned if he's not. So, what benefit does he have to go out there and throw? Let's say that he does look bad. Now, there's going to be this perceived stuff, or Ty Simpson may overpass him. So you don't want to create those negative perceptions. But on the other end, there's a lot of guys that take advantage of the
Yeah.
spotlight. So I think a great debate. We talked about this frequently on SportsCenter throughout the week with Fernando Mendoza not performing at the combine. There was an opportunity for a lot of those guys behind him to really step up, whether it's Ty Simpson or Garrett Nussmeier. I love that Drew Howler came out there and threw the ball really well. Carson Beck is another name that's in that mix as well. So even though these top guys are not performing, I think it's a great opportunity for some of these other players to showcase themselves. But what I do absolutely love is when those top ranked guys do actually accept the challenge of going out there and performing, like a Sonny Styles or Arvil Reese or a Jeremiah Love. Scouts absolutely love that stuff just because they accept the challenge of leaving no doubt, which is what I love personally.
Yeah, again, they go out there and answer questions. Even guys like Sonny Styles, who didn't have a lot of questions going into the
Mhm.
combine. Yeah, this is going to be a big time player. Man, it was an impressive performance. We'll talk about him, Kenyon Sadiq, again, Taylon Green, guys who just absolutely blew the numbers out of the water. What about on the team side? Have you gotten any sense? Again, I know there's more and more perception. Yeah, the Rams, Jaguars, Lions. They don't send their executives. They don't send kind of top brass. All three teams, I saw scouts, saw people for all three teams. They're still there. Again, it's a little bit overblown that they have no presence at the combine. But again, an event, it's always interesting. An event that was built originally for scouts to go and answer these questions. Again, it seems like maybe there's some dyspepsia with scouts, again, just the way everything's gone again towards TV, which is good for the game, good for the athletes, good for the bottom line, but again, makes it tough for scouts. Did you get any sense that scouts are continuing to grow frustrated with the way everything's set up?
I don't think they're growing frustrated. I think kind of just depends on which tree or which branch you really came upon. And what I mean by that is like the Jaguars and the Rams, they obviously have a very similar tree branch that they came from. With James Gladstone coming over from the Rams, he does what Les Snead does. Les Snead hasn't been at the combine in who knows how long, but he's known for not going to the All Star game circuit or the combine just because they feel like they get the same value from those Zoom meetings as they would get in those formal and informal meetings. So it really just depends on the upbringing that you have, whether it's the Jaguars or the Rams or whatever team, like the Bengals. The Bengals don't have a lot of people in the scouting department, but they still feel like they run an efficient operation. And it's very hard to actually find some of their scouts just because the scouting department is so small. And you know this, haven't been in the league. So it just depends on which team and which upbringing you come upon. But I don't get a sense of anybody complaining or, like getting disgruntled with the way the combine is ran.
Yeah, as scouts, if you complain, nobody's going to listen to you anyway. So again, you show up, you grind, you do the work, and hopefully you go out there and, like you said, see some of these guys perform. And like we said, overall numbers may have been slightly down, but the guys that showed up and tested, man, they tested. I think across the board numbers were about as good per position average as they'd been in a long time. Again, right off the bat, were there any names that really surprised you, either for the good? It was mostly for the good, I think, or for the bad. Any names that, man, I was not expecting that?
I have a long list right here in front of me, actually. The big one for me is Mike Washington, the running back out of Arkansas. I thought he helped himself tremendously. I didn't expect him to run 4.33 at
Mhm.
23 pounds. I mean, I thought he looked pretty fast on tape. I thought he was like a mid 4.4 player, but low 4.3s, I was not expecting that at all. And once again, very similar to some of these other positions like safety. There's a clear number one at the position, but after that, it's a huge cluster or a mixture of a lot of guys in a similar bucket. So everybody knows that Jeremiah Love is the consensus number one running back. But after that, I think there's a lot of guys in a similar tier, whether it's Jadarian Price. Emmett Johnson, along with Mike Washington Jr., even Jonah Coleman. Out of Washington, I throw him in that tier as well. But him going out there and testing as well as he did, that really helps him stand out in the point. So, excuse me, he definitely was one. Another one for me was Bryce Lance, the receiver out of North Dakota State. It's just because we hadn't seen him at all during the All-Star game circuit. And very similar to these running backs, there's like a huge cluster of those big X boundary receivers in this class, whether it's the Chris Brazel out of Tennessee, Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame. There's a lot of other players in that similar tier as well. So him coming out and running legit 4.3 and showing that he physically can fly, I think that really does help.
Yeah. Again, you mentioned just using Mike Washington as example. Again, you said on film he looks like a mid 4.4 guy, which again for a 220-pound running back, you feel great about that. Scouts are estimating. You very rarely do you have a verified number going into this process. But again, is that driving you back to the film? Are you going to go put on Mike's or again any of these guys that surprised you with that number? Is that part of your process? Hey, let's go back and see if do I see faster than 4.4? Is like, hey, credit to whoever's training him. He's a 4.3 guy in shorts and he's going to be a 4.4 guy all day in pads.
I think that's what the whole pre-draft process is about, honestly. It's not just the combine, it's the all-star games as well. The all-star games can make you go back and rewatch the tape on a lot of these players for the good and the bad. So it's not just necessarily, just to go back or just to watch the tape. It's really, I always say this. You always use those all-star games and the combine to confirm or deny some of the things that you saw on tape. Like personally, I thought Mike Washington was a low to mid 4.4 type of player. Now, he just definitely confirmed even more what I initially thought, but even faster. So those are the little things that you use when we're coming out of the combine, out of this all-star game circuits. And it's not just the 40. It can be 3-cone, short shuttle, bench press, whatever it may be. You can use any of those data points to really, I like to take little mental notes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's hit on a few specific guys. And again, Taylor Green is one that comes to mind right away. Again, big, good looking athlete on film. Again, that was fairly easy to see. Even more explosive, I think, than a lot of people thought. Again, the numbers across the board set quarterback records, which again, thrower of the football, player of true quarterback. Again, he's got a lot of work to go. Again, obviously that Arkansas team, talking to a couple Arkansas guys, and yet, the
Mhm.
season went the way it did for the Razorbacks. And again, going to have a new head coach, a new front office in there, which again, think highly of that group they brought in. But again, all to say, Taylor Green, there's a lot there to work with. When you see the numbers come back the way he does, and with the NFL being more and more teams talking about, hey, we've got to just, hit that quarterback spot, develop him, get him in the right spot. Does Taylor Green move up the board? Does he get more love, more consideration as, hey, this is a true developmental quarterback prospect?
Without question, just because I like to call those mid to late round quarterbacks lottery tickets. You're hoping you eventually can cash in on one of those. But this is the type of lottery ticket that you take in the mid to late rounds. I have a late fourth or early fifth round grade on them coming into the combine, but I think somebody could take them early day 3. Like that wouldn't surprise me at all, especially when you consider the fact a lot of those quarterbacks we talked about in those mid rounds, they don't have those upper tier physical traits. So if
Yep.
I'm going to take a chance on somebody in those mid to late rounds, I'm going to potentially take a chance on somebody that has those upper tier physical traits that I eventually can develop. He has much more arm power than a Carson Beck or, a Garrett Nussmeier. He has better size than all those players as well. So if I have time and I have leeway or a long leash, or even an established veteran in front of him, and I have some time to develop a project like that, like why not? Like if I'm the Los Angeles Rams and I just need like a project to work with, even though I'm in the win now window with Matthew Stafford, why not develop somebody like a Taylor Green? Maybe I can get something from him, 2 or 3 years down the road with Matthew Stafford calls it quits. So I think I'm really interested to see who actually does draft him, honestly, and what situation he really lands in. Just because you're right, man. He's such a toolsy project to me now. He is the epitome of the word project because the highs are super highs, but the lows are very, very low with
Yeah.
him. But once again, that's the type of lottery ticket that you take in those mid to late rounds.
Yeah. Again, so we kind of touched on Fernando Mendoza. If he's not number one overall, clear cut number one quarterback. Again, you might want to go out there and check your sources, check your film, check your head, probably not more or less. But again, after that, Ty Simpson again goes through the process, has a good solid week. Drew Aller goes out there, throws the football, really really impressive throwing the football. I don't think that's ever been the question for him. Again, you talked about
Mhm.
Garrett Nussmeier. Again, he looked pretty healthy. Again, getting him through the process, listening to him. Again, for these guys that are really quarterback two through about the rest of the group, again, were you able to hear, able to see, and so much for these quarterbacks happens in the meeting room, behind the scenes, getting to know the person, the processor. Are you in this short time able to glean anything talking to people, or is it, man, from the first time they get their hands on them at an all-star game all the way through April 27th or whatever the first night of the draft is, man, teams have a lot of work to do on quarterback two through the rest of the group.
That's a great question. I always like to see like the maturation process of quarterbacks from the All-Star game to the combine. What I mean by that is, this Rodrik. A lot of those guys have never called a play in a huddle before, just because everything is so signal based in college. So can they relay that verbiage in a huddle? How are they adjusting to targets that they have never threw to? Is it a little bit too much for them? Did they get better throughout the workout, throughout the All-Star game? Like, I think Drew Aller deserves a ton of credit for what he did, just because this dude broke his ankle against Northwestern. He comes out and competes in the throwing session, which is something nobody predicted him doing. And I thought he started off really bad during the throwing session, but what you noticed was as he continued on and he adjusted to some of the guys that he had never threw before to in his life, he got better. And I thought it was really impressive with him. So I'm really interested to see exactly where he ends up in this process. And it's not just him. I thought a lot of other guys got better throughout the throwing session as well. So those little hiccups early on, especially those outbreakers, just because some guys like to square out their routes and there's some guys that round their routes. So just the angles of those guys that they're running their routes, it's very tough as a quarterback. As a former quarterback, I can attest to some of that stuff as far as how guys break off their routes. So how are these quarterbacks adjusting throughout the work? And I thought a lot of them did a really good job. But also Carson Beck getting booed by everybody in the stadium. The Indiana fans were just constantly booing him. But that's an adversity you love to see him battle through. And he was just smiling and he was laughing, and it didn't really break him at all. So those are little mental notes that I take throughout the workout. And I thought all the quarterbacks did the ball really well. Honestly, it was an impressive group overall.
Yeah. Again, being a former quarterback, I'd imagine it's not just the throwing. Again, completion percentage, don't worry about that at the combine. And even just like you're watching in game field, all right, you take your rep and you go back behind body language, communication, talking to those wide receivers, talking about, hey, maybe getting with that next one. Is that something come combine time that you're still focusing on with these quarterbacks as they get through the drills and are interacting with all these other guys?
Without question, short-term memory is something that I look at. How do they respond after they throw a ball in the dirt, or if they sell it to the bleachers? Do they take it? Do they put their head down? Are they nonchalant throughout practice? So I'm big on body language. I'm big on energy. Do they bring a lot of juice to practice, or are they doing what I like to call just existing? You don't want a quarterback that's just out there existing, just because, man, this is the biggest job interview of your life. So you want them to bring a lot of juice in the huddle. You want them to be energetic, and you want them to be confident. That's the one trait that you have to have stepping into the huddle. Just because if you don't have that, especially as an NFL quarterback, nobody's going to believe you in that huddle, and your coaches are not going to as well. So just how is their body language? How is their energy? And then just how well or how thick is their skin if they do make a mistake?
Yeah. Well, I know for those quarterbacks, actually hearing some crowd noise can sometimes be a good thing because it's one of the more awkward things. Again, I know the specialists talked about it. Again, a kicker stepping up there in a dead quiet
Hmm.
stadium, trying to hit one from 50. Some of those guys are like, I would love to hear anything, some noise. I would love to hear a boo or two because, again, it lets me know I'm in the stadium. So, again, hopefully all these guys enjoyed it. And again, that's what you sign up for when you're going through this process. These quarterbacks are they're going to make a few bucks, so I think they'll be okay. Moving on from quarterbacks, yes, there were other positions, and again, the quarterbacks. Again, we're going to have number one, and then are we going to have another first round quarterback? Will be the question. I'm probably leaning toward yes, but let's get to again the guy who really left no questions on film the entire year down at Miami and shows up and has short arms. Shock to nobody that is actually, watched film, talked about Ruben Bain. Again, disruptive, balled out, was a huge part. Nobody could block him all year, but again, the numbers come back maybe even a little shorter than what you would want, what you'd expect. But again, what does that do for Ruben Bain and how does that change the conversation for him?
I think it just really depends on the team, honestly, just because everybody already knew that his arms were short. Like, I don't get I understand, like, historically, he has some of the shortest arms ever, but everybody knew coming into the process how short his arms were gonna be. Now that we have an exact measurement, everybody's freaking out about it, but despite that, we saw what he was able to do. He's dominated in pretty much every game that he's played in, and he's a power rusher as well. Now, I could understand if he was just this sack artist that had a full repertoire of moves and he relied on winning with a bunch of moves and he wasn't long. Now that's completely different to me, but he wins with power. And I've seen power translate plenty of times with edge rushers. And the most consistent edge rushers that we have had as rookies throughout their careers have predominantly had a very good power profile. So, I mean, my thoughts are still the same on Women Bane, but now that we have an actual number, I just don't understand why everybody's freaking out about it just because we already knew that his arms are already short, and we saw what he was able to put on tape.
Yeah. Again, one of those beautiful analytics conversations where, again, it's very quick and easy to see historically just how short they are. Again, everybody go back, look at the film. Again, find that's where, again, you're probably going to go back as an NFL team. I'm sure you will at some point. Like, all right, let's find the 2 or 3 games where he lined up against the longest tackles. Again, that's always one of the beautiful parts of this process. Not only do we have Rubens verified, we probably have a couple of those offensive tackles that he went up against. Let's find somebody with 34 and a half, 35-inch arms. And again, you put on the film, he's probably beaten up on them real consistently because he did it all year. And again, it just like anything combine year, it's going to buzz and it's going to die back down. He's going to be top 10 pick. Jordan, you think he's still
Yeah.
right in that 5 to 10 range?
Yeah, I think so. I think it really starts with the Titans at 4. And then I would be surprised if he got past Cincinnati at 10, just because they have a huge need off of the edge as well. So I still think he's a bona fide top 10 pick without question. There's just too many teams that need a edge rusher. And his film, coupled with what he did this season and just the leadership factor that he brings to the table, I just don't see him getting outside the top 10.
Yeah, he's a football player you want on your team every day of the week. And again, while he measured a little bit short, there were 2 guys that really left absolutely no questions through this process. Again, probably pushed themselves up the board. Man, I would have paid a lot of money to just line up, Sonny Styles and Kenyon Sadiq after their stuff. Like, all right, let's just let them run one-on-ones and whatever, again, run blocking, pass game, let's just start letting them go. Both guys off the charts. Again, you're talking basically ideals across the board when you start talking, what do I want from an inside linebacker? What do I want from a tight end? Guys that can do it in the run game, the pass game. Holy cow. Did you see, again, can you remember a year where 2 guys in similar fashions on both sides of the ball just absolutely blew the doors off the combine?
None actually come to mind like right away, but it's 2 of the best combines like I've ever seen. Like those dudes are the epitome of the word explosive. So I have like a seat, and all my friends know this. I sit directly behind the vertical jump. That's like my seat ever since I've been to the combine for 6 years. That's like the seat that I have designated for myself. So I like to sit behind the vertical jump just because the vertical jump really tells you who some of these explosive athletes are. And the broad jump is right beside it as well. You've been to the combine many times. So you know exactly what I'm talking about as far as the layout. So when Sonny Styles jumped, my head just kept like going up just because like he just kept going further and further up. And I was sitting beside one of my buddies, and he was like, man, he might have just jumped 40 plus. And the guy entering the stats, he said 43 and a half. I couldn't believe it, man. Like he was it's just crazy, man. Just because I seen him. So as you know, I travel during the fall. I see all these guys. I was there for the Washington game, and I actually tweeted this out. I was like, Sonny Styles was built like an action figure. Arvell Reese as well. That's the only way I can describe like how these guys are built. They have that chiseled frame. He came in. He was listed at 6'5", 243. He came in at 6'5", 244 directly. So that just goes to show you like he was everything that he was labeled as, and he matched it, man. I just love the competitive factor of both of those players. They didn't have to go out there and do anything, but they accepted the challenge of wanting to leave no doubt, as we talked about a little bit earlier. And every scout that I talked to just love that about him, and their meetings were terrific as well from a lot of the people that I talked to. So leaving no doubt at all that they're both bona fide top 5 picks. I think both are going to go somewhere inside that top 5. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all.
Yeah, it's going to be fun when and get all the, you know, so many people out there will talk positional value. Like, can you take an inside linebacker that high? Can you take a tight end that, again, I was a part of a group that got questioned with Kyle Pitts at number 4. And again, Kyle's career for multiple reasons, has not quite been what that college tape said it was going to be. But again, you throw a grade on a player, and these guys are going to end up with big blue grades. And there are not many of those guys that have that top 10 type of grade. Again, guys that you expect to be at the top of their position right away and for a long time. Again,
Can I ask you a question? Because you've been in a draft room before.
go.
Do you really worry about the financial ramifications of a
No,
position when you're drafting inside the top 10?
no,
So
no.
where does the whole positional value thing come from if we're drafting Kalen Downs in the top 10 or Sonny Styles in the top 5? Like, I don't know. You've been in draft room before. So financial
Yeah,
ramifications, when does that come into the picture? Do you worry about
yeah.
second
No,
contract with that?
yeah. So it really comes down to, again, we know, and I talk about all the time, quarterbacks and edge rushers, they're always going to get pushed up in terms of like, hey, those guys are just harder to find. The question becomes that you have in draft rooms that teams end up having is, does drafting again, we'll use Sunny Styles, does drafting a linebacker change our defense that much? Does having somebody this special change our defense that much? And again, for some teams, no. You can have fifth round guys that have sufficient good level traits. And again, for a team like that sitting there, yeah, maybe you have the positional value question that, hey, we've got to find, again, maybe a very good player as opposed to an excellent player is better for our defense. Again, find good football players. Again, you're going to love Sonny Styles' answer. And that was the Kyle Hamilton question when he
Yeah.
was coming out. Kyle Hamilton answered a ton of questions in what he could do at safety. And I think the same thing is going to be said for Sonny Styles at the end of the day. You can do a lot of it doesn't matter what the defense is, he fits. It doesn't matter base nickel dime, he fits. If you want to rush him, his rush numbers were good. He can cover tight ends. He can do everything. So again, he's a guy that makes a lot of sense. If you want to get into the safety conversation with I'm going to draw a blank on his name at Ohio State now. Again,
Caleb Downs.
Caleb Downs, the size, again, you talk less ideal size. So Caleb becomes a little bit different conversation. Outstanding football player, again, doesn't hit those ideals that Kenyon and Sonny do. But again, it becomes one of those conversations you have to ask and answer. And again, at the end of the day, they are special enough. They are excellent enough, really across the board, where I don't think they have whole lot of those questions. So again, two extremely good guys. Again, Kenyon Sadiq, the question will be, does he go as high as Kyle Pitts? Could he be in the conversation at the number 4 pick and kind of get that tight end market back there?
I think that's a little high for him. I think his market really starts, I would say 9 to the Chiefs, just because they need an explosive weapon. Depending on what happens with Travis Kelce, they still need somebody behind them for the long-term future. And Mahomes needs some weapons as well. So I think his market really starts at 9. One spot I think is really intriguing for him. I keep saying the Rams with as much 12 and 13 personnel that Sean likes to use. I think it's gonna be hard pressed to keep Sean off of drafting him, especially with Stafford being in that win now window, wanting to maximize him. I really like his fit there. 19 to Carolina makes a lot of sense to me as well, with them needing to find out exactly what they have in the quarterback, especially with him coming up for possibly a big extension here in the next year or so. So continue to surround him with some weapons as well. So that's about 3 or 4 fits that I think makes a lot of sense for him. So in that top 20, from that 9 to 20 range, I think there's a lot of teams that make sense for him.
Yeah, no, I would, again, Carolina would be ecstatic to get, again, a playmaker like that. Again, you saw what Tet McMillan did this last year to elevate that offense, elevate the quarterback back to where, again, why he got drafted where he did. And I think another playmaker would certainly make that fit. And we're going to stay with guys who, does the positional value match where he's going to get drafted? Jeremiah Love, again, love to see him go out there, compete, do everything. Again, there's plenty of people out there that say, yes, this guy's better than Ashton Jeanty. He's certainly a different running back
Yeah.
than Ashton Jeanty was, wins in a different way. Again, if you want to say more dynamic, a little bit more versatile be in the pass game, but again, an outstanding combine. Jeremiah Love, what was your impression of him, getting to see him live in person without 8 guys in the box loaded up to stop him?
So when he was going through his workouts, there was like a collective silence in the entire stadium. And then once he did his drill, the on-field stuff, there was like a bunch of oohs and ahs and claps just because you could just tell the dude was different, man. Like it felt like his feet weren't even touching the ground. You know how Bijan runs and it's kind of like he's skiing through the defense? It felt like he was skiing through the bags. And then when he made cuts, it was just different from everybody else. I hate it for the people that went before him and behind him, just because you're comparing it to him. And it was totally different from the other guy. So I'm with you. I think he's the best player in the draft, honestly. Now, he's not going to go with the number one overall pick. We know that's going to be Fernando Mendoza. But if we're strictly just stacking talent, and how I stack my big board is, who do I think has all pro or Pro Bowl player potential? And I just go down the list from there. Excuse me. I think he has that Pro Bowl player or all pro potential just because of how special he can be at the position. Now, he reminds me a lot of James Cook when he was coming out of Georgia, but I think he's even more dynamic than what James was. And we've seen him go on to have a really successful career up in Buffalo. But he brings that Jameer Gibbs type of fear factor to the table. And there was a lot of people that complained about him, I believe, going number 12 to Detroit at the time. But now nobody's complaining about that just because of how good of a player he is. So I look at Washington at 7. I think they make a lot of sense depending on what they want to do and pair somebody with Jaden Daniels. 8 to New Orleans makes a ton of sense with them having a young quarterback at Tyler Shuck. But man, if he lands at 9 with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are upset about that. I think that's the ideal fit for him, just because they need somebody in the backfield. They don't have that explosive option on the perimeter or in the backfield. But if we're talking about taking a lot of rushing success or dependability off of Patrick Mahomes, man, just imagine him throwing the ball to Jeremiah Love and turning around and handing the ball off to him. I think Andy hasn't had a dynamic running back like that in a very long time. Really since Brian Westbrook, from what I can remember. That's the last time he had somebody like that.
Yeah, shades of Brian Westbrook again in his ability to play in the backfield, out of the backfield. That'd be a fun one. Again, this is one of those guys where, like you said, you said he is your number one overall player on the board. Again, if you're stacking him, Sonny Styles number 2. Again, where does like your top 3 go?
So I have Love, I have Downs actually too.
Okay.
I have Reese after that. And I'm a big fan of Francis Mourinho. Like I love me. So I know we'll get to O-line here in a second, but I'm a big fan of Francis Mourinho.
Good. Well, that's a perfect segue because again, O line seems to be no established number one. Again, you look at Caden Proctor on the hoof, and it's like, hey, that guy might have an argument. Maui Goa, boring in a good way that you want
Yeah.
offensive linemen to be super consistent. Again, you kind of saw that maybe the tide turn on the offensive line a little bit the last couple of years. Some of these guys that have gone in the first round that have stepped in and played right away as rookies. Again, boring was good. Again, whether it was Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, you got Fatuanu, you got some of these guys like, hey, there was nothing again, a lot sexy, but again, nothing eye popping. Guys that were just consistent. Francis Mauigoa is that guy. Caden Proctor's a little bit on the other end. You've got Georgia. You've got some of these other offensive linemen who, again, maybe some higher flashes, maybe some little bit lower floors. Mauigoa, number one offensive lineman for you. But after that, this is kind of a wide open offensive line group.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we're going to get a ton in the first round, though, especially with it being such a top heavy group right now. I think we'll get as many as 6 or 7 in the first round, honestly. And we didn't even talk about Ian Archer from Arizona State, who I think could get in the first round. Blake Miller from Clemson as well. I think he may find himself in the first round as well. So we could get as many as 7 in the first round. But it's the whole ceiling debate with this entire offensive line class, honestly. Who do you feel has the highest ceiling? There's a lot of people that feel like Monroe Freeling at Georgia has the highest ceiling, especially with how he tested. There's been some Colton Miller comparisons thrown out there with him, just from an athletic standpoint. If you remember, Colton wasn't the best technician when he came out, but it was more so having a long-term view with him. A lot of scouts felt like 2, 3, 4 years down the road, he was going to be the best of that group. And they ended up being right. He ended up being a very, very good player. So Monroe Freeland is one. Maui Noah, who I personally love. I think he's just more consistent overall with his technique and boring. I think that's the best way to describe it. My way of describing it was consistently consistent with him. I mean, you turn on the film, you can predict what's going to happen on this play. It doesn't matter any game. You know he's going to win this rep. It isn't always pretty with him. I will say that. He's not the longest offensive tackle in the world. He definitely is built like a guard, just seeing him in person. But the player that he does remind me of, and there was a lot of similar questions with this guy said that he's going to be a guard as opposed to a tackle, was Darnell Wright when he was coming out of Tennessee. They look exactly the same, seeing them both in person. They have very similar questions. The wingspan is a little bit longer with Darnell, but as far as everything else, it is nearly identical with both of them. And Darnell is on to be a really good player. So I would play him at right tackle first, just because I think he's going to be very good there. But if he shows you that he's not, or if he can't sustain as a tackle long term, I think he's going to be a damn good guard.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the guy that came to mind for me that I did a ton of work on and unfortunately missed his final year was Rashawn Slater. Again, when we were sitting there at that number 4 spot, again, thinking like, all right, this guy's probably not going to beat Jake Matthews out. We've got, we've got a right tackle here. But again, we played him at guard. Hey, he could be a center here. His, again, incredibly consistent tape. Again, guy that you don't have a ton of off field questions, a pro from day one, ready to plug in and play. And again, really, really fun tape. What is your sense on a guy like Caden Proctor, who again, the highs, again, a guy that's using the screen game, get him the ball, like the highs are high, the size is massive. They don't make guys that big. But again, he is, again, a lot of times on kind of the outside. Oh, by the way, Proctor could be in this group type of first round offensive lineman. What could he do from now until draft night to ensure he's going to hear his name called in round 1?
Well, first I'll just start off, excuse me, got a little cold here back in Indianapolis, but got a little cough. I apologize about that. But he was one that I wanted to make sure to ask a lot of buddies in the league where they had him. And depending on who you asked, there was no in between. Either you liked him or another scout said, we're going to let him be good somewhere else. He's
Yep.
just not for us. So I think for him, he's one of the more polarizing prospects in this year's class, but everybody knew that he was going to test really well. Like, he's a really good athlete. He came in at 6'6.5", 352 pounds, which is a good weight for him, just because I think he was listed at 360 on the roster, if I'm not mistaken. So he tightened up his body throughout the pre-draft process. You love to see that about him. I thought he looked really good in drills and testing as well, which is another box that you want to see him check. Another debate with him is if he's a tackle or a guard. There's some people that just want to go ahead and kick him inside the guard, while there's others that feel like he has the athleticism to play either tackle spot, honestly. So I would love to be a fly on the wall. If he's still on the board, like late teens, early 20s of some of these teams that are debating where they should take him and where they should put him, I'm really interested to see where he does end up going.
Yeah. Well, again, it's going to be a fun offensive line group, and again, we've seen the game, we've seen. It's easy to talk about it now. Games built in the trenches, O line, D line. This is going to be an O line, D line heavy round 1, again, including your edge rushers in there. We've hit on all them. Caleb Downs, safety 1, a good group after that. That was a safety group that really tested out. We haven't hit on corners yet. This is a corner group, again, maybe without that premier number 1. Again, Avion Terrell has kind of been the guy, really impressive combine, a little bit smaller than you would ideally like to play outside consistently. Did anything change for you come combine time with these corners? Did anybody help themselves out with testing, with getting a verified long arms, anything like that?
I thought the second tier of the group performed really well, and it's very similar to linebacker and receiver for me, of where there's a lot of guys that were in that same bucket, like Davison Igbinosa at Ohio State, Julian Neal, Arkansas, Devin Moore, Florida, even Malik Muhammad, Texas. That second, third round range, there was a lot of players in that similar bucket, and I thought they all performed really well, honestly. There just wasn't this year, and there just wasn't that disastrous combine from anybody at the corner spot. So a lot of those players really help themselves. And once again, this is why you want to see all of them do the testing, just because in the draft room, once again, you've been there. We're stacking all these guys up. And we're going to come back to those data points. Who did what, how they performed, and which one best fits our scheme. You go to the interviews to see who stood out, who maybe did not interview so well. So them doing all these things really help themselves. But I do want to speak on Jermiah McCoy. I was a bit disappointed that he didn't do anything, just because, especially with him being so far out from the injury.
Yeah.
He had the knee injury in January of 2025. So quite a bit of time from when he did suffer that injury. I just want him to go out and do the drills, just show that you're functional enough to go out and do the drills. I wasn't asking for any testing or anything of that sort, but I would have loved to see him go out there and do the drills just to show that the knee was okay.
Yeah. Again, that becomes really tough. Again, a lot of players get a lot of advice, a lot of opinions through this process, and at the end of the day, it's guys like McCoy that have to sit across from NFL GMs, coaches, and answer, why are you not doing anything this far removed? Again, you got guys that are talking 6, 8, 10-month timelines are getting back on the field with injuries like this. Hey, why aren't you doing anything? And again, those questions aren't slowing down any between now and pro day time, between top 30 visit, private workout time. So again, it makes it an even longer process. Again, this can be one of the hardest, longest processes for these guys. Again, you finish playing a game middle of December and you don't do anything, sometimes a month and a half, 2 months. Again, you get these check boxes along the way, and it becomes a long 5-month process to go from your last game until the NFL draft, where you're
Mhm.
going to be going to play football. And again, having to answer questions like that doesn't make it any easier or any more fun of a process. But
Yeah.
for you from here on, again, the combine's about answering more questions. The combine is, hey, coming into the combine, coming into testing interviews, I had X, Y, and Z questions on this prospect. And again, from here, teams probably got some answers, but again, now it's pro day time, top 30s, private workouts, everything else from here until draft time. What questions are you really looking to answer? Maybe it was overall position group at some of the pro days you're going to be going to. What questions are you looking to answer in the next 2 months?
Well, just to see who goes out at pro day and who does what. I'll be at Clemson on March 12th, which is going to be a big one that a lot of scouts have circled on the calendar. Peter Woods is defensive tackle from there is a huge question mark right now as far as where he's going to go. There's a lot of variance with this draft projection. Some teams see him as a top 20 guy, while there's others that feel like he's a late first, early second round pick. So just seeing exactly what he does at pro day. Avion Terrell will also be there as well. He only did on field drills, so just seeing exactly what he does as well. Clemson will be a big one for me. Tennessee, we just talked about Jermon McCoy. We'll see what he does actually at the pro day. I mentioned to see exactly how he looks as well. So those are two big ones for me. But as far as just pro days in general, guys that didn't do anything, you want to see them go out there and do everything. Leave no doubt, as we said with Sonny Styles and Arvo Reach, like they did at the combine. But if they omit a drill at pro day as well, now, once again, those questions are still going to be lingering.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Again, you hopeful, and that it's become so much the norm where I'm going to do A, B, and C at the pro day, X, Y, and Z at the combine. I'm splitting them up again. As a scout, you have a little bit of angst about it. It's like, man, again, would love to see it. But again, at a certain point, for a lot of these guys, you understand it. It's become very normal. Again, you'd love to see them go out and compete, but it comes, again, just part of the process. And scouts are going to be hitting the road, again, answering questions. Again, hopefully the road is safe for guys. Hopefully guys continue to get healthy, because that's always one of the things for some of these guys that have long seasons, played an all-star game, hopefully are staying healthy through training. Again, your pro day oftentimes is that last chance, that last statement on the field before you have to sit behind a Zoom screen or across from somebody in an interview, get on a whiteboard. So he is at Jordan_Reid. Jordan, you're going to be all over TV, all over everywhere, given the draft takes. Again, if there's one guy through this whole process, any round, who's the guy that you want on your team?
Oh, man, I've touched on him already. It's Francis Mount. Like he would be my gold star player in this draft. I just think he just has translatable traits. I've seen him do it 3 years straight, consistently consistent. He can play four positions up front. I wouldn't even deny that he can play center, even though he's never done it before. At worst, I know I'm going to get a high caliber starter at guard, but I personally would play him at right tackle first. I think he would be fine there. So Francis Maui will be that guy for me.
Well, that's again, you've got to expect from a quarterback either go with the protector or go with the weapon. So again, you go with the protector. Can't go wrong with that. Jordan, always love the insight. Always appreciate you join us on Scouting the League.
Thanks as always, Roger.
Agents, before we go, make sure you go check out Agent Live 360. It is at agentlive360.com for everything you need for your agency, from players to coaches, managing profiles, tracking invoices, sending invoices, getting paid, keeping up on every element of your entire agency. Notification emails, file folder storage, ROI, transactions, invoices, calendar, contracts, teams, reps, everything all in one spot for you. That is Agent Live 360. Hop on, request a demo. Yours truly will hop on, walk you through it. I can promise you we will talk some football as well. Sign up now with code TRIAL90 for a 90-day, 3-month trial at just $10 a month for Agent Live 360. That's at agentlive360.com. Go check it out now.